Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Dr. Kate McCombs is at Samford University. She just finished up a TED Talk, and I would love for her to just highlight that just a little bit. So proud for her, and we're glad to have you here, Kate. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Dr. Kate McCombs. I'm a professor at Samford University at the Brock School of Business. And so I teach leadership as well as servant leadership in the MBA organizational management course. So everything that I talk about today is stuff that I talk about with my students all the time. And yes, thank you, Darla. I recently did a TED Talk. I was scrolling through some of the names, and I think there were some others that are on this call that also did the TED Talk. So if that was you, please unmute yourself and let me know. I talk all the time for a living, and it was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I've ever had. Totally different to do it. You're supposed to be funny on time. You're supposed to hit all the lines at the right time. So it was a totally different experience, but really, really enjoyed doing it and talked about a lot of what we're talking about today. So not just the power of saying yes and no, but for the TED Talk, it was how to lead yourself, how to influence yourself. So all of what I'm passionate about and a lot of my running themes is just how do you be the best leader you can to yourself so that you can then be the best leader you can to other people, whether that be people you're managing, your family, your friends, anyone you interact with. So thank you so much for that quick introduction. I also do some consulting for organizations, coaching, executives, keynote speaker, workshops. I'm really passionate about creating leadership development programs for organizations as well, especially emerging leaders. Since I teach the Gen Z, which not everyone has their different opinions on. I absolutely love this new generation. I love being able to create leadership development programs to kind of inspire and motivate that next level of leadership coming in. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully I can do this seamlessly. All right, can everyone see my screen? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So please unmute yourself at any point. Lindsay and Darla are going to keep an eye on the chat. So I love engagement. I'm happy to have this presentation will go out to you guys. So I'm happy to have things get sidetracked if there's a certain conversation topic people want to have. This is your time. This is your lunch break. So please feel free to interrupt me. But this is a session I've actually done before on the power of saying yes or no. And I specifically made it about the holiday hustle. We all know around the holidays, things get a little bit crazy, and it's November 5th. So we're starting into that holiday season now. And there might be one thing that you're already realizing you said yes to that's crowding your calendar. So something that you said yes to, or you know you're about to say yes to, that's going to really overwhelm you. And it's incredible. I think the holiday season, if anyone here on this call has kids, I think it starts October 1st with like 100 fall festivals, 4 trunk or treat events. I mean, it's crazy. I had a friend the other day that said she was on her 7th dress up day of like the past 2 weeks. It's just becoming out of hand, right? So this is along the lines of everything in work too. So what we're going to be talking about today is having the power of saying yes and no. So being able to figure out, what do I want to say yes to? And then figuring out what I want to say no to. How do I do that? So this is for all you women, and I saw one male too. So yay, Clifford, for getting on this call as well. But navigating all this visibility and pressure, balancing leadership with your personal priorities, people that are ready to ditch guilt and lead with intention. So much of what we're going to talk about today is it's all about just being intentional with your time, because it's the resource that's not going to expand on its own. And what you walk away with, and what I'm really passionate about, is practical strategies. So if you are one of the few that have seen, I did something similar with Upward Council. This It's going to have a holiday spin, but also we're going to be focusing on how do we actually enact these strategies, because that's what I'm really passionate about doing, is being able to walk away saying, oh, okay, I know how to implement this in my life today. So I want you to think about some questions as we're getting our mind set and our mind right with this. Have you said yes to a holiday event or obligation this month that you already regret? Have you RSVP'd yes to a party, gift exchange, gathering, because it was easier than saying no? All the time I say yes. It feels easier to say no in the moment, even though it's not. Have you ever taken on a holiday task, like organizing a cookie swap, decorating, coordinating travel, because you felt like you should? Have you ever said yes to something that cost you rest, exercise, or peaceful time with family during the holidays? Have you ever felt like your holiday yes was taken for granted or went unnoticed? So this is a problem that exists. It exists not just during the holidays. It was kind of fun making these slides all holiday themed. It got me in the spirit for the holidays. But this is a problem that's happening all the time. Working women have such an invisible load of work. They're 48% more likely to volunteer for non-promotable tasks than men. So that means tasks that don't necessarily lead to that next promotion, more likely to volunteer for, more likely if that third email asking for a volunteer comes out, more likely to say, fine, fine, I'll do it. Women perform 200 plus more hours per year of unpaid office work. So we're talking about so much added work in the work world. And then on top of that, that's not even discussing what you might be doing outside of your work on top of your job. Only 35%, though, of women in mid-level roles say they feel confident declining work that doesn't align with their goals. So we are overstretched, we have too much going on, and we're not being intentional about saying no to some things too. And often what happens is you don't know what to say no to. So you say yes. And the things that get the no's are the people or the parts of your life that don't get an option to ask. Your body can't ask you for rest. Your body can't ask you for a walk or a break. Your toddlers can't ask you for more time or put schedule on your meeting calendar, right? So a lot of times what ends up happening is if you're not intentional about what you're putting on that calendar, what you're saying yes to, you end up piling it on with a lot of this invisible work instead of really intentional work. Holidays, it becomes even worse. So these are some different headlines, quotes I've seen in the news, even just already starting November 1st, talking about volcanic levels of resentment that women start having around the holidays. Nearly half of women in the United States experience heightened stress during the holidays, greater risk to health of their mind and bodies. Women's stress levels often rise during the holidays because they're charged with the task of keeping traditions and all of that holiday magic. We're overscheduled, overstretched, overwhelmed during the holiday season than at almost any other time of the year. So you're saying yes to everything, and it can turn this time that's supposed to be so full of joy, so full of family, so full of gratitude into obligation. Because what are we doing? Instead of taking anything off our plates, we're just adding more on. So this leads to burnout. This leads to absolute exhaustion. This burnout, exhaustion, it leads to cynicism and disengagement. It leads to reduced efficacy. So this is why organizations need to care about this. It leads to less productive work. It leads to less successful teams. More than half of managers, this is women and men, report feeling burned out. And I don't know if anyone's seen it, but recently Gallup posted that only 30% of employees are engaged in their role. They're not engaged because they're feeling exhausted, they're feeling burnt out. It's leading to this disengagement. They're not feeling a connection with their peers. They're not feeling motivated to continue on. This isn't just stress. This can't be solved by free pizza Fridays. Can't be solved by a little bit of self-care or fast massage. It's intentional work that you have to do. And around the holidays, we're telling all the time, not just the holidays, but we're telling women to lean in, to do more. And then the holidays, it's even more. And lean in, but we have too much on our plates. We're piling so much on our plates. We can't do the things we're really wanting to do. We're not leading with that intention. So people might be asking, can you host again this year? Can you organize the Office Secret Santa? Can you squeeze in just one more project before break? All of these things that start making our chests tight and we just say yes to, but we end up getting exhausted. And what I find, especially with a lot of women that are probably on this call that are really highly capable people that work really hard, is this thought that over functioning is what leadership is. Proving your worth, you need to through exhaustion. We've all done it. Oh, how are things? Oh, busy. You busy, and we feel so good about it, right? We feel so much pride in being so busy. When really often that's fear, that's self-neglect, that's a lack of intention. So are you really serving your work world? Are you serving your family? Are you serving what you're doing? Are you being the servant leader? Or are you going to become just a burnout martyr, right? So are you just trying to prove your worth versus being really intentional about what you're doing? So all of that sounded a little heavy, right? So we're saying, okay, this problem exists. It exists even more for women. Now, what do we do about it? And we have to lead ourselves. And that's what I'm so passionate about sharing with TED Talks, with different sessions I've done, is it's all about leading ourselves. And it's a journey that you do every single day for the rest of your life. You never get to stop, which is what makes it so exhausting, but also what makes it so fun. So there's kind of two different types of people. There's people that don't take any ownership. Say someone else is going to do it. For all of you all that are on this call during your lunch break, it's none of you, right? Like you are not assuming someone else is going to do it. You're taking the time to do it. You have a lot of ownership. So already we're not talking about that track. I have a lot of sessions that's just for getting people motivated, right? On this call, my guess is it's more people that are incredibly motivated, but are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you being intentional? Are you doing it because you can or because you should? Are you doing it for the applause? Are you doing it for another thing on your resume? Or are you truly leading yourself for yourself? Because that's when we see resilience. That's when we see that authenticity. So that's now what we're going to talk about today is how do we say yes to the right things? How do we figure out what to say yes to? And then when we figure out what we have to say no to, how do we say no to those things? So I want to pause there and see if there's been any engagement in the chat or if any of this has resonated, not resonated. Do you feel like it's more all consuming during the holiday season? Or do you feel like this is just a problem that exists holiday season or not?
So, Kate, one thing that I've noticed that this is, and I'm seeing people starting to come in, that this is a year-round problem. I was about to say, before anyone said anything, this is for me, when I was thinking about when my children were little, when they were in high school, even now that there's just a lot going on that's not just during the holidays, but the holidays do feel a little more pressured. But I feel like it is a year-round constant when you're engaged with people, when you are in the leadership positions that a lot of us are, whether you're in leadership at home or at work, you've got stuff going on. And the invisible things that you're talking about, I feel like happen not just in corporation. I feel like they happen in community events. And wherever your house of faith is, hey, we want you to do this or that. It happens at home when they say, oh, you're just a homemaker. Oh, wow. That is, this happens all the time. And I think we all can relate to that. And I love to hear what we're saying that our audience is typically people who are getting things done. How do we keep the intention at the heart and avoid burnout? So thank you for addressing all this, Kate. This is hitting right where we're wanting to learn more. We appreciate this.
Oh, I love this. It used to be a problem for me, but COVID gave me the courage to back off. I love that. A lot of people learned a lot about creating these boundaries during COVID time when you realized this mesh between work and life was so strong. Um,
Right.
so many career goals include more volunteer, being seen, how can career goals and personal goals merge? Yes, 100%. And that's what we're going to talk about next. I mean, the more synergy you have in everything you do, the better. Then you're figuring out what you're saying yes to is not just one category, it's 5, right? So if I say yes to this session right now, not only am I so passionate about momentum, am I so passionate about this topic, it also is something that Samford's like, oh, great, I'm so glad she's doing this. It's also a way to market that I do consulting for leadership, that I do consulting for organizations. Like it's checking off so many different boxes to be able to be a very quick yes. So we're going to talk about some practical ways that we can figure out what to say yes to and what maybe we need to say no to. So first is auditing that invisible workload. If it's not tracked, it's not valued. Invisible labor disproportionately affects women in leadership. Emotional support, onboarding, DEI work, cultural maintenance, critical and rarely rewarded. So it's not saying any of this isn't important. It's not saying to not do it. It just means to be incredibly intentional about what you're doing and selecting versus not. So I made some holiday themed one. We're going to do some examples that aren't holiday themed too. Organizing office secret Santa, cookie exchange, buying or wrapping group gifts, sending out holiday cards, thank you notes, end of the year thank you gifts, decorating office space, managing schedules so others can take a time off, not taking time off yourself, planning or attending every social event to show up and support your team, remembering birthdays, milestones, holiday preferences. The biggest thing I see is being the emotional glue. So oftentimes checking in on others, smoothing tensions, lifting morale. So much you're not rewarded for, but is vital to the organization, right? And you're taking so much time doing that. I recently, in the role I'm in, said no to not necessarily a promotion, but another program they wanted me to coordinate because I said, if I don't have margin in my schedule to have a coworker walk in, say, hey, do you have 5 minutes and give them 20, then that's not the kind of leader I want to be, right? That's not the kind of professor I want to be. That's not the type of department chair I hope to be one day. That's not the type of administrator I hope to be one day. That's not how I want to show up. So that means you have to say no to some other things, right? Because I want to have time for this invisible work. So it's not saying it's not important. It's just being intentional about every time you're doing it. Invisible work is emotional labor, coordination. It's keeping that culture alive, though it's rarely rewarded. So I want you guys to think on yourself here. List the 3 things you regularly do at work or outside of work that's critical to your team or culture, but aren't part of your job description or measured in your performance review. And what is something you could stop doing? What's something you could share or delegate, maybe not do it yourself? Or what's something that's important and you need to get credit or visibility for? And that's being intentional about what you speak up on. What I just said earlier, I told my dean that. I said, hey, I would love to take this role on, but this is something that's important to me. I see the value in doing that, right? So I think making then sure you get credit or visibility for it. So I want you to take a minute or two and think about the invisible workload. Feel free to ask any questions here too, but what are things that you're doing currently that maybe you could stop doing because it's just part of your invisible workload? You could share or delegate, or you could start getting credit for.
I
Leading,
wanted to I want to
yeah, go
highlight
ahead.
something real quick. Thank you, Marissa, what you said, that it's an adjustment dealing with the disappointment from others when you protect your peace and your time and you say no, or you put you. I would love for us to talk about that too, Kate. Just give some
Yeah.
tips of how do polite and professional, clear, kind ways to say no,
Yes.
I can't do this.
Yes, we are going to get to that at the
Thank you.
second part and take notes on all of those ways to say no. But if you are not disappointing some people, you're overcommitted. You're not being intentional. It's just, there's no way to not be disappointing people, especially with this crew on this call. You guys do awesome work, I'm sure of it. So people are asking you to do more work. I've realized that very quickly. You realize that in your career, if you do well, the reward is getting more work, right? So if you're not saying no to some things, you're probably overcommitting. If you're not disappointing some people, you're probably overcommitting too. But it is a massive adjustment, right? Because it feels so good to have people say, thank you so much. And I don't know what we would do without you. That feels so good. So that's figuring out the decision. I'm constantly having to say, okay, is it my ego that wants this? Or is this actually aligned with what my values are, what my goals are, what my mission is? Okay. In some environments, we do not have the freedom to decline additional tasks. 100%. There's some things that you can't stop doing, right? So one, is it invisible then? Or is it something that's a visible task? Is it something that they're making a note of it? And are you making a note of it when it comes to resume, getting credit for, visibility? Is it something you could delegate to as well? Leading an employee group to help being aware to women in the automotive industry, not part of my paid work or reviews, that leads to raises. Yes, 100%. So something like that is you deciding, do you want to keep doing this and get credit for it? Is it something you're incredibly passionate about? Does it fuel you? Or is it something that you don't want to keep doing and you stop doing it, right? So it's making those intentional decisions. Serving as a leader in an employee resource group. Yes, yes, a lot of volunteer work. What if you can't think of anything right away that you can't stop doing? Yes, I love that. That happens to me often. It's figuring out the beauty in having margin in your life and what you get from that. And I would say for that, if you can't think of anything to cross off, start with going back to what are your values? What are your core values? And that could be a whole nother session. That's part of my root, reset, rise of my TED Talk and self-leadership stuff. Figuring out, maybe you're someone similar to me. I get so excited about things, right? And I'm like, oh, this sounds great. This sounds great. What are my 3, 4 core values? What's my focus in my life? And ensuring that I'm focusing on that and then seeing if I have time for other things. Because it starts getting really complicated deciding because maybe you love everything on your list, but sometimes, and I hate saying this, sometimes you can't have it all right now. You can't do it all right now. So being really intentional with that time. So had a lot of good different ideas there, but be thinking about what's that invisible workload. So what is maybe not being noticed and what should I stop doing, delegate, or get credit for? 2, to figure out what we should say yes to or no to is asking the question, is this a ladder or a leash? So women are 21% more likely to say yes to extra credit projects that don't lead to a promotion. So is this something that's a rung on my ladder? It's going to get me to a promotion, a raise, or is it a leash tying you to low impact work? So is it something that's going to be reoccurring and it's tying you to this lower impact work? So ladder, if you were just climbing the ladder, you were saying yes to every opportunity, every party, because it might help later. Extra client work, plan events, attend gathering. You might burn out, but you also might get promoted, right? So this is the ladder work. Versus leash, you're pulled in every obligation, every direction. You're doing work that it isn't really grounded in your purpose. It's something that's more of an extra credit project that's really more tying you down. So being really intentional about, is this a task that's making me progress higher up on this ladder, or is it pulling me down to this low impact work? So asking that question anytime you get a new ask. And then finally, the plate test. If anyone's was in my upward class, you may have heard me talk about this plate test. I love this metaphor. I talk about it all the time, and it rings true every time I say it. Think about in your life, what plates can you drop without breaking your credibility or your career? So think about your life and think about this image of someone spinning a bunch of plates. And all of these plates are either paper, plastic, or glass. So we have our glass plates. If they drop, they shatter. So if you do not sleep at all at night, you are not going to be able to function. If you do not turn in that monthly report, or you were in accounting and you don't hit those deadlines, that might be a glass plate. You might lose your job, right? Then what are plastic plates? Those are ones that can drop a couple times. They're more durable. Those are things that email responses within 24 hours. If you constantly aren't responding to people, you'll be seen as unreliable. But if it's every once in a while, it's this plastic plate. And then what is paper? What should be thrown out of there? For me, Oftentimes it's thank you cards, not sincere thank you cards that are heartfelt, that really move the needle of the relationship and are really strong. It's the thank you cards that are, birthday party for your 2-year-old and they don't even remember what they threw in a bag that just ends up being this crazy hassle. Maybe it's holiday cards. Maybe it's doing a little gift for every single person you ever met. You figure out what are those paper plates. They look nice, but they don't matter in the long term and they should be thrown out. So your glass plates, delivering an important client project, maintaining your health, family connection, leading your team through year-end review. Plastic, they can recover, attending optional events. You need to decide which ones to do, helping on a side project, wrapping up reports that can wait until January. And then paper, overdoing it, over saying yes to every fun task that drains your energy, things that don't matter in the long term, volunteering to too much. And you will notice if you write out your to-do list and start starring things as what's a lash, what's a leash, what's a ladder, what's a glass plate, what's a plastic plate, what's a paper plate, and what's invisible or not, you'll start noticing that a lot of your time is spent on these leashes, these paper plates, and these invisible workload. A lot of your time, a lot of your mental stress ends up being these paper plates that you really only care because you think you need to, but really you could just throw it out. So are you saying yes to the right things and really doing those 3 tests to figure out what are you saying yes to and is it the right things or the wrong things? And then figuring out from there, all right, I have to say no to some things. How do we do that? So that's what we're talking about next. But I want to take a second to pause here if anyone had any thoughts or to go through the chat. So I'm not actually looking at the chat as I'm talking. It's too much to manage. So I'm going to take these little pauses here to look at the chat there.
Someone asked, could you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Let's go back to the last one, I
The
guess.
plates one, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is this project a ladder? Okay, reviewing projects with a plate test. Does not this project put your job?
That's me.
Oh, reputation. Yes, yes,
Not
yes. Okay. Stop doing. Oh, these are questions Lindsay had for everyone. Okay, cool. Developing a healthy workplace, culture, team collaboration, cohesion. Yes. Yes, they tend to align best with RA functions. Yes. A lot of that's what I end up coaching leaders on and executives on is a lot of doing these things, right? Because why are there so many poor managers is because they don't do this, because what are they promoted on? It's based on profits, year-end review, maybe even monthly review if you're in sales. If you're a public company, CEO's typical tenure is 3 years, right? So they're not focused on these more long-term issues because they're not getting praised or disciplined with these more long-term issues. So they end up being invisible even though they shouldn't. So I'm not saying that any of this isn't incredibly important. It is, and it's things that I then talk to organizations about bringing into their culture and putting a focus on. It's more, should you, all of you on the call, be the ones putting that all in your back, be the ones carrying all that weight. So figuring out then some things we want to say no to, taking a current request and saying, is this a ladder? Is this a leash? Is this a certain plate? Is this a paper, glass? Is it a plastic plate? And then we've found some things we need to say no to. Saying no can reclaim 7 to 10 hours per week for strategic work. You need time, you need margin, you need that flexibility to be creative, to be strategic, or you're just constantly running on autopilot. You're constantly running at such a fast pace that you're not giving yourself a chance to catch up and a chance to actually be creative and proactive and strategic, all of these things that will get you to that next level in your career or next level in your life, right? So how then do we say no? I'm going to pause here. I just saw Samantha. This is something that I relate to very much. I have a couple of employees who come to me because it's easier than figuring it out themselves. I've stopped responding immediately. It was carrying a mental load for someone else. Can't do it. I love that. That's going to go right into the delay. So I mean, think about it. 20, 21-year-old students with my students, It's often they ask me questions they can easily figure out on their own, easily. So I now, if it's in the weekend, if it's at nighttime, I wait 24 hours. 24 hours before responding, and 75% of the time they answer the question on their own. Now, 24 hour, it's a little bit different if it's not a student. But so often giving people, empowering people, being a servant leader is empowering people to do it themselves, not just doing it all for them, right? So figuring out how to say no to that. And sometimes it's just delaying. So the power in delaying. Strategic pause protects your power. It ensures that your yes or no is a choice, not a reflex. Making it a rule. When someone asks you to do something, wait 24 hours before you give a yes. Really think about it. It creates space for clarity. It signals that you're being thoughtful in your approach. It maintains control. It opens spaces for alternatives. It reduces that people pleasing or reactive decision making. And instead, you're deciding based on, is this invisible load or not? Is this a ladder or a leash? What type of plate is this? Does this match my values? You're deciding based on really true intention. So once you have that delay, once you take that pause, then you want to say no. And you need to say no without the guilt. It's not a no, I'm so sorry. If you're never disappoint anything, I said this earlier, I can't remember who had the comment, you're probably overcommitted. So setting these boundaries is associated with increased leadership effectiveness and psychological resilience. Though high achieving women disproportionately avoid interpersonal conflict. So we don't say no because we want to help people. We want to do it all. We don't want to have the conflict. Even though saying no actually increases effectiveness as a leader. I recently had someone ask me to speak at a conference that I wasn't able to go to. I first was like, I'm just going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out. And I said yes. Then I thought about it and I realized, I really don't think that I can juggle this all. And I emailed back and I said, I'm so sorry. I don't think this is something I'm going to be able to do, with plenty of warning. It was only 2 days after I'd said the yes. Not only did everyone understand, I got asked for 2 other things to be on different research projects from that no. And immediately I realized, okay, 1, I need to implement my own tools more often. 2, it doesn't make you look worse or weak. Instead, it makes you look like you're very intentional. And when you do say yes to something, you mean it. And it's something you're really going to do well, and you're going to be reliable, and you're going to put your effort into it. So, what are ways we can say no? Here's some different scripts that we can kind of role play. Thanks for thinking of me. I can't give that attention it deserves right now. I'd love to support, but I've made a commitment to focus on XYZ. I know you'll do great. I'm cheering you on from the sidelines. I'm at capacity and I want to deliver on my existing commitments. And then this last one's my favorite. Thank you for trusting me to do this. Right now, I need to stay focused on blank, but here's what I can do. So you see a running theme with all of these is you're opening it up first with, thank you so much for thinking of me. Because so often when we end up saying yes and we don't mean it, what we really wanted to say was thank you. We wanted to say, thank you for thinking of me. Instead, what comes out of our mouth is, yes, you thought of me, I'm going to say yes. But really, we're just grateful that they thought of us. We're grateful that they asked us. We're grateful that they feel like they have this relationship, or they asked for our time, or they asked to have this deep discussion about XYZ, or to do this extra project, whatever it is. I'm so grateful you asked me. I'm thankful you asked me. I'm thankful you trust me with this. However, right now, I need to do this. I can do this at this point, or I can introduce you to this person who's going to be perfect for it, or I can cheer you on and do this, or I can support you this way. So it's constantly making sure that you're intentional about your responses, and intentional about what you're doing. And you're not, you see, with all of these answers, you are still scratching that itch of people pleasing. You're not ruining any relationships. You're not altering any perceptions people have of you. If anything, you're only increasing them for the positive. So sometimes it takes having set rules. I'm going to wait 24 hours. I'm going to have one of these phrases on my desk ready to go. because it can be in the moment so much easier to say yes. And then you say, I'm going to figure out how to do it later on, instead of, I really don't think I can do that. And that's okay to say. And it becomes a superpower. I have a toddler. I'm not good at telling her no. And I've learned every time I tell her no, I feel like a little more empowered. I'm like, oh wait, I'm the boss here, right? Like I can tell you no. And you start realizing like you are in charge of your schedule. You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of what you're doing with. Not always. Sometimes there's tasks you just have to do. So that's on your list of these are the glass plates that I have to do. But when you get something else asked and get something else put on to your plate, really be intentional with, is this something I should say yes to or not? So I'd love to hear from you guys if you've had any things through this conversation you've thought, this is something I should say no to. This is something that actually I should make time for. This is something that I've already said yes to. Is there a way I can get out of it? I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts. It seems like a lot of people like these responses. Yes, leading with gratitude. That was the biggest turning point for me to be able to say no is leading with really what I'm meaning to say, which is just thank you, right? And that's because I'm constantly, I wouldn't say surprised, but I'm constantly thankful that people think of me for things, right? So what else? Does anyone have anything that comes to mind with something they don't know of how they should say yes or no to? And feel free to unmute. Also, I don't want to put people on the spot. People might be eating, doing other things, so I can move on to the next slides too. I just wanted to check in.
Hey, I wanted to, oh, sorry, we're in the same room.
Here we go.
What I want people to really ponder and is in that moment when someone's asking you to do something and you really don't want to disappoint them and you don't want to say no, and to spend that 24 hours and that time thinking about it and realizing even if you do say yes, feeling like you're being the good guy, and then you don't have the time and energy and you don't do that project well, and then what does that end up feeling like at the end? You know, when you say that yes, it felt very like an obligation to you, and then for the other person you were trying to help, you know, maybe there was someone else they could have just gone to and they would have been able to do that, and now you've sort of, you know, you've ended up disappointing them in either way, and you've added stress to your plate.
Yes. And what are you becoming, kind of the yes man or the yes woman, right? Like, what are you, every yes is a no to something else, even if you're not aware of it. So what did you say yes to that then later on someone might say, hey, Lindsay, I could really use you for XYZ. And you say, I can't do that because I'm already doing something that really doesn't matter, right? It's always going to be a no to something else. Okay, I'm going to open the chats here and see. Oh, yes. I like to say thanks for asking, but respectfully, no, it's beyond my capacity. It's beyond my scope of interest. I like that. I feel like you are really good at saying no. It's beyond my scope of interest. I like that.
Yes. Thank you
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely am. I am very good at saying no, you know, respectfully, because I do value my time. You know, I think we all carry, you know, a pretty complex load. And while, you know, sometimes it can be challenging to say no, I do also exercise the power of 24 hours. I literally have somebody waiting on my response right now because I decided that I needed 24 hours to make the decision. Even though I kind of knew what I wanted to say when we had the conversation yesterday, I like to sleep on it, or it's just whatever it may be. Sleeping on it a night gives me clarity, you know, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I did. And so when we get off the line, I'm going to collect my thoughts about the ask and I'm going to respond. But I've given myself the 24 hours and that's fair, you know. And again, like, yeah, I definitely exercise that power of no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love too what Sonia said, through the years has really focused and learned how to prioritize her time. So full of events that really fill her up, right? So it's being really intentional with that. Yeah. It's okay to say I have another obligation. Yes. I found in many situations that saying yes now is just delaying the other person's disappointment rather than truly avoiding it. If I'd said yes, but no, I can't follow through or won't deliver my best work, it's later disappointment than just addressing it from the jump. 100%. 100%. Love the 24-hour rule. I've learned to let someone know that I've changed my mind or my ability has changed. If I gave myself time before answering, I'd give a better answer at the start. 100%. Instead, I've done the exact same thing, right? Before you implementing the 24-hour rule, I would say yes to everything. And then later on realize, maybe that's something I shouldn't have said yes to. Maybe that's something I don't have the capacity for. So today, kind of wrapping up, what have we talked about? We looked at this problem that definitely exists. A lot of people were relating to it, but then we looked at actually the research behind this is a problem, and it's a problem for women more than it is for men as well. And then we looked at, well, how do we solve it? We looked at some practical applications of how we could solve it. Auditing our invisible workload, seeing what's invisible, what's not. Should we say no to it? Should we delegate? Should we get visibility for it? Is this a ladder or a leash in my career? And then what type of plate is it? Is it a glass? Is it a paper? Is it a plastic plate? Once we figure out, okay, we got to say no to some things, how do we delay? And then what are ways we can say no? So I just saw Amber with a comment here. I'm pretty young leader in my organization right now, and the pause is the hardest part for me. Yes, I'm currently at the place where I know what I need, but I'm facing the frustration of how to articulate it. Yes, 100%. And I would say, especially my students starting out their internships or jobs, saying no isn't meant for the first 3 to 6 months of your job. That period, that's a season that you were supposed to say yes. You're supposed to be in the office a bunch. It is the time to show up, because whether we like it or not, people create their bias and their notion of you for the next 10 years based on those first 6 months. So that's not the time. But if you're young in your career, meaning the first 3, 5, 10 years of your career, yes, there's then that switch, right? There's that switch from you're a year, 2 years in, and you're realizing, I've got to start saying no now. And you need to be intentional with shifting, because people might be used to you being there on all the time. But often what you'll find is if you were saying yes all the time and you were there with strong work, they're not going to notice that you're doing maybe less. They're just noticing that you are someone that says yes and you're reliable and you always come out with good work. That's what people remember. Any tips for saying no to children as they get older and not feeling the mom guilt? My 10-year-old daughter is the most difficult one to say no to at the moment. That is really difficult. I think it's first running the test by you, right? If you feel the guilt, at least for me, oftentimes if I feel the guilt, it's because I'm questioning, am I spending enough time? And not saying you aren't, but sometimes it's coming up with my own rules, coming up with my own, what do I think is right? I love the phrase saying, I'm the mom, so I don't look at other people. I don't need to Google it. Like, I'm the mom, right? So I get to decide how much time each day is the right amount of time and what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. And yes, or I'm the aunt. Yes, like I get to decide, and it's not based on what my daughter's saying. It's not based on what other people are doing. And so for me, usually it's intentional time. We all know you can spend 6 hours with a kid and be like, that was pretty awful. That wasn't enjoyable for anyone. Or you can spend 25 minutes and it was like this life lesson, life-changing moment, right? And we remember that with our own parents too. So it's having that intention to it. So I think it all comes down to, if you feel good about it and what you're doing, then you don't need to have that guilt. And if you're saying no for work, as long as you're balancing it all and still being there for her, which I'm sure you are, how incredible she gets to see someone that is balancing that. I know so many of my friends that didn't see that, and now in the working world, they don't know how to juggle it. They're like, how do I do that? And so to be able to see their mom figuring that out, juggling that, figuring out how to say no, when to say no, I think that's such a valuable lesson, even if she doesn't necessarily understand at 10, because my daughters are 2.5 and 1.5, and they do not like the word no. So I'm guessing at 10, it's the same. So it might not be now she'll understand, but hopefully with time, she'll be like, oh, wow, that was really amazing of what she was doing there and how she was balancing that. Let's see. 13 and 15-year-old, I become better at saying no without the guilt. I explain to them the why or provide a scenario so they can understand their mom's reason behind the scenes. Yes, 100%. Because sometimes especially with these different ages, a lot of it is you are just their chauffeur places, and you just can't always do that, right? So it's deciding what's fair and what's not, and you hearing them out and saying, okay, I'm going to say no to this because this makes more sense to me. And you get to decide that because you have the experience, you have the knowledge, and you have the intention that you know you're making the right decision. So I hope everybody enjoyed this. We'll still have a little time to chat too, but I just wanted to put this slide here of just my website. If people in my email, if people are interested in this and other topics like this, I work with organizations, individuals to develop confident, aligned leaders through workshops, coaching, and really my focus, and I do a lot of research as a professor, is practical tools. So not just inspiring, not just talk. How do we really make this practical in your life so that you can lead yourself well, influence yourself well, and then elevate leadership, empower people, and engage the rest of your team too? So my last little corny holiday clip here. The biggest gift you can give yourself this season is saying yes to what matters and saying no to what doesn't. So I hope going into the holiday season, this kind of gave you the armor you need to be ready to really be intentional with what you say yes to and no to. I know starting in November, it seems like, this is so far down the line, but I promise you in the middle of November, you'll be like, how do I have 8 holiday parties and 27,000 gifts to get, plus 3 more projects added to my plate, right? So really, hopefully these tools are helpful to have in the back of your pocket. I'll also be doing a session that's exclusive for Momentum in December on practical tips going into your performance review. So really practical tips on how to make you stand out in your performance review, help you come up with topics to discuss in your performance review, and really use that time to move the needle instead of it just being what it sometimes can be, which is either they're just validating you, but you don't actually see the outcome you want, or just going through the motions. So how to really be intentional and make an impact with that performance review. So thanks so much. I know we only have a couple more minutes,
But Kate, you had
happy to
a
answer any
quiz for them,
questions.
didn't you? Kate, did you have a quiz for them to fill out?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Kate. This has been phenomenal. And thank you. I can tell by all the responses that everyone not only have you given us some practical tips of how to handle the holiday stress, you've also helped us to know how to encourage other women and men in our organizations and our families, how we can say no gracefully and enjoy the holidays. I think this is something that would really help all of us to enjoy the holidays more, have more joy, and really that when you have that more joy and you have that space, you can actually take in what this was all meant for. And it's hard to do that when you're exhausted and burnt out. So thank you, Kate, for giving us that space. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And I pray that you all stay safe on the roads and you're traveling and everything. And we look forward to seeing you all coming into December. Thank you again, Kate. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. And feel free to please email me, reach out on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with anyone on this call too. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching